Welcome to Chris Strub Unmuted. I'm Chris Strub, and today we're talking about return on relationship. Success doesn't come in acing that algorithm or listening to creators that I might find and encounter online. There's no combination. There's no permutation of creators that you can just blindly follow on social media to really figure out your own way forward. This is Chris Strub Unmuted, a show designed for open dialogue, honest reflection, and uncensored truth about the lives that we lead. Today's episode talks about return on relationship. Now, we're still in season 1, and I don't want to get ahead of myself. I've said that a few times on our first set of podcasts here, that there's a lot more to come. We're going to sort of structure this podcast in a way that I think really makes sense and speaks to different audiences in different ways from month to month. We're definitely going to spend some time coming up diving into some of my favorite books. And I didn't want to step too far into that here in our opening series of episodes. But this book and this philosophy, I've found as I've been talking through a lot of these different episodes, is so core to who I am and why I'm here and what I do, that I couldn't wait. I need you to hear just how important the idea of return on relationship is to me, especially because this book is written by a man who I consider a good friend of mine. His name is Ted Rubin, and this copy of this book is autographed here by Mr. Rubin. And I want to read off what he wrote in this book. May 29th, 2016. So coming up on 10 years ago. Chris, thank you so much for reaching out and building a relationship. Relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. It's all about relationships. Ted. Now, I got this book not at a bookstore. I got this book not at a book signing, not at a conference. I actually got to meet Ted at his home. And I'm not going to dox him, but got a home on Long Island near where I live or lived on Long Island, and had a limited window of opportunity to go meet Ted in person. And he very, very kindly accepted, invited me over. I got to sit on the porch with Ted for a little while. And I will never, ever forget that day, May 29th, 2016, that evening, where Ted went inside his house, grabbed a copy of his book, signed it personally over to me, and said, "This is for you." And this book is actually a reason why I decided to go on and write my own books. 50 States, 100 Days, right? That feeling of being able to hand someone a copy of your own work, of your own book, meant the absolute world to me. Now, Ted Rubin is a marketing icon, a legend. I'm not sure if there are marketing, digital marketing hall of fames, but if there is, Ted Rubin should have an entire wing named after him, right? Like, the dude has done everything. And Ted, if you're listening, know how much I appreciate you, man. I needed to get this episode into the opening batch of my brand new podcast, Chris Strub Unmuted, because this philosophy of return on relationship has become completely core to everything that I do. It's also become completely core to all of the successes that I've had in my own business over the last now decade, right? Decade plus since I quit the job in Binghamton in 2014. So going on 12 years now as this episode's coming out. And I cannot emphasize enough to you how valuable personal relationships are in the success that you will inevitably have along your career journey. So if you are a college student or a person really of any age listening to this episode, please know that as you're embarking on a job search, or if you're like me and you want to go along the solopreneur route and you are looking for different ways to grow and expand and become a better version of yourself, the absolute best thing that you can do is reach out and drive these personal relationships with the people that you look up to and the people who have come before you, right? The world that we live in these days is changing. And in another episode recorded recently here, I talked about the unlimited waterfall of personalized content that is constantly being served to us. For me, success doesn't come in acing that algorithm or listening to creators that I might find and encounter online. There's no combination. There's no permutation of creators that you can just blindly follow on social media to really figure out your own way forward. To me, part one of this is really the growth and the learning and the maturation that I've had over my career journey has come in the trenches with some of these folks, including Ted Rubin. And after I got to meet Ted and shared with Ted some of my naive, I was 30, 31 back then, still trying to figure out who is Chris Strub? What am I doing? And I'm still largely trying to figure that out. Trust me. Right? Still definitely trying to figure that out these days. But, when I was just getting started on my solopreneurial journey, that conversation with Ted was one of the really formative moments in my career. And reading this book, Return on Relationship, and really embodying the principles that Ted writes about and has spoken about many, many times on stage matter a lot to me. And you can see over my shoulder here that, we're going to point to it. There's my bookshelf. And I promise we will get more into some of my favorite books that I've read over the years. But what you're going to find throughout that process is that I've actually had the opportunity to meet and speak with and connect directly with a lot of those authors. And the hat that I'm wearing today on this recording, you'll probably see in other recordings too. For the benefit of our audio listeners, I'm wearing a hat with some orange writing that says grow. This hat was handed to me personally at a diner or a restaurant by Mark Schaefer, who is another one of my North Stars in the marketing and entrepreneurial field. And I'm not going to get ahead of myself. Really, I could just blabber on for hours about the combination of books that I've read, but including Known, which is the best marketing book I've ever read. Spoiler alert. We'll definitely talk more about Known in a future episode. But getting a chance when I was up in Tennessee, where Mark lives, with his lovely wife, to meet with Mark and get to talk to him for, I think he gave me like an hour and a half, over lunch one day when I was up there running a half marathon up near the Great Smoky Mountains. That to me is what life is about, man. It's about connecting with people. It's not about, DMing or, leaving the right combination of comments and stuff on content in that endless post-midnight scroll on your phone. To me, it's about making those personal connections. So there are avenues and, there are ways to do this in ways that are not creepy, right? I don't want you to look up these people's addresses and just show up and knock on their doors, and don't do that to me either. But social media has given me and everyone the opportunity to authentically connect with people in ways that go beyond what you see on your digital screens. And I've been extremely blessed to connect with a lot of these great speakers and authors and professionals, both in the marketing space. And then of course, over the last few years as the Giving Day guy, getting a chance to meet personally a lot of the nonprofit leaders around the country that make their communities and our nation a safe and healthy and happier place to live. When you ask, Chris, why are you starting a podcast? For me, the opportunity to revisit a lot of those relationships and a lot of those conversations that I've had, both as the Giving Day guy and really before COVID, in more of my role as a marketer, a social media marketer. I'm going to hope that you find as a listener, as a subscriber, that you can benefit from a lot of the lessons that I've picked up on over the years before they start to disintegrate in my brain. Right? I want to take these lessons that I've learned and share them with you. And I want to invite you to please reach out to me. I don't think I'm anywhere in the stratosphere of the folks, someone like a Ted Rubin or a Mark Schaefer. But I've done some cool shit over the years. Got a chance to meet some cool people. I've got some cool people in my phone. I was going to cold call Ted Rubin on this podcast and, I'm not going to do it, Ted. But certainly we'll try and get Ted on for a conversation in a future episode. I don't want to be rude here during the holiday season as we're recording this, but to have folks like Ted, like Mark and others, Dan Genghis, in my phone really means a lot to me, and to be able to reach out to these folks that I know and trust man to man and man to woman in many cases too. Well, I don't want to generalize. This is not, the old white dude society, right? But those relationships, when I tell you that they really matter, they really, really matter. And when I look at the successes that I've had in anything that I do, getting on stage as a speaker, speaking, being a keynote speaker in the United Kingdom with my boy Biz Paul, right? All of the stuff that I've done as the Giving Day guy was born from an in-person conversation at the Community Foundation of Louisville back just a couple months after I got handed this book by Ted Rubin. This May 29th, 2016 was just a couple days before I was officially moving down to Louisville. It might have been a day before, actually. I think May 29th, 2016 might have been a Sunday. And then I was moving down there to start with Humana in May 29th, 2016. Was a Sunday. And then that following week, I was moving down to Louisville. I was driving the car down to get started with Humana, which is where all of my work as the Giving Day guy began. So this was a moment in time that changed my life. Was reading this book. Not a big book. Like, I know a lot of you guys out there, you digital natives aren't big readers, Michael Kelly, as I'm trying to get him, my buddy here at GVL Daily, to read another one of the books that I'll talk about in a future episode. But this is a great one to get started with too. And you can flip through this book probably an hour, take an hour after listening to this podcast, read Return on Relationship, send a tweet to Ted Rubin and tell him that Chris Strub sent you. All right. And remember that relationships, let me make sure I'm directly quoting the man who taught me this in person. Relationships are like muscle tissue. The more you engage them, the stronger and more valuable they become. It's all about relationships. Thanks for listening to Chris Strub Unmuted. Support the show by clicking like and subscribe. Keep up with me on social media at Chris Strub. Please do reach out too. And remember, we are all famous to a few people.